Captain's log. Stardate 1990 SEMINEM. The cross-platform crew of the Starship Aegis is attempting to boldly guide you through the setup. Wait, hold up. Log in. There. That. No. Wait, this. What the fuck is this? Suspended! I've just. Hang on. Oh my god. Fuck this. Okay, we're in. So today, I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the downright Ferengi so you can see if Star Trek Bridge Crew is worth your time and money. So stay locked, crush that like button.
Engage.
And I hope it helps.
What is currently happening YouTube? Facepalm here, your friend in Oz and NZ, bringing you reviews, tutorials, and game clips, minus the shit. You can follow me on Twitter at Facepalm with a 1, not an L. As for here on YouTube, if you like what you find, then like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to bring your game face. Let's get it done.
Initial hiccups aside, once I was signed in, Uplay was actually uninvasive and just did its thing unnoticed in the background. Though it would have been nice to get a warning about my outdated account instead of a 1-hour ban. Pre-game, I was asked to reset my view using the thumbstick on my touch controller, which was a nice start, especially as long as cables are a thing. I was then dropped into a shuttle where I had a stellar vista of the larger-than-life, tastefully modernized Starship Aegis. My virtual hands and body were a good fit, and I was given short, interactive tutorials and customization options, then casually nudged into training and guided through the ins and outs of the 4 main roles you can play in the game, which I'll talk more about in a minute. Following the training, I did a quick run of a single-player mission with a team of AI to further cement my capabilities as a functioning member of Starfleet. I was ready. And that's about it for the single player, which is essentially a shitter version of the extremely strong multiplayer component of the game. And so the multiplayer is what I'll focus on from here. Within about 20 seconds, I'd been dropped into a room, and after ascertaining that we all had a mix of Rifts, Vives, and PSVRs, which was goddamn cool in its own right, I gave my unsuspecting crew a fairly straightforward forewarning.
Y'all in fucking trouble now.
And set out to command the Starship Aegis with all the fake confidence I could conjure as I set a course for greatness. In the game, the consoles were modded for actual gameplay and weren't just blatantly unfunctional copies of what you'd see on the actual Star Trek shows. Text was clear, the controls were far enough apart that you were certain to hit the one you wanted, even in a panic. And everything was laid out in a well thought out and relative fashion. The bridge itself was spacious, authentic, and populated by enough NPCs to fill the gaps. As the captain, I had to command my crew based on objectives I was given from a panel on my console. In this role, I felt empowerment and a real sense of responsibility for the lives of my crew. And when asked, "What do we do now, Captain?" I was like, fuck, I don't know. But then the game helps you know in a really natural way that kind of makes you feel like you're figuring it all out on your own, even though you're kind of not. The red alert button was asking for a hiding, and it was actually more alarming than I thought, so I ended up saving it for more serious matters, after a couple more test runs. At times, I felt I wasn't doing much, but I was. I was gauging the situation, directing my crew, and then guiding them as they carried out their tasks, all while prepping for the next step and adapting to each situation as it unfolded. As the engineer, I had to responsibly manage the ship's power routing by directing appropriate levels of limited energy resources to the correct sections of the ship at the correct times. This included shields, engines, and prioritizing which section of the ship needed repairs the most. With this role came a weight of responsibility on par with sitting in the captain's chair, because without the correct routing of power, the starship was effectively crippled. As the helmsman, I had to point the ship in the right direction, control its speed, and keep enemies in view so tactical could do its thing with phasers and torpedoes. In this role, I felt the least like talking, and more like the systematic issues that plague the engineer and tactical weren't my concern. My concern was getting us to where we needed to be and to make sure we were facing what we needed to be facing. I also felt that awaiting orders was the natural thing to do in this role, and relying on the captain's direction was paramount. In the tactical chair, player, I had futuristic firepower at my fingertips, as well as the more defensive task of raising the shields, scanning objects and vessels, and potentially disrupting those vessels for beaming out crew or for destruction, depending on the situation. In this role, I found that outside of a conflict where things got pretty hectic, I spent most of the time sitting around scanning shit and backing up the running jokes with additional commentary. Initially, I felt like each role on the starship had an overwhelming set of tasks to understand, but the game is set up so that each role makes sense. The captain is handed objectives from the console, then he or she tells one or more of the crew to do a specific task which is relevant to their role. For example, if the ship needs to move to a different system, engineering would have to divert power to the engines, the helmsman would then need to point the ship in the right direction, while tactical balances between managing the shields and firing at anything within range that conflicts with our interests. The actions of each role cascade through to the other roles on the ship, and the prompts that guide you along the way, in addition to some common sense, make you feel like you are in control and a crucial part of the mission's success. As for the story, couldn't tell you. Was too busy having shitloads of laughs with random people from around the globe to even bother. It was Vulcan related from what I read though. Single player, forget it. Almost 100% of the game's appeal is contained purely in the multiplayer aspect. So the main issue there is that if your internet can't sustain the connection for online gaming, then it's likely you won't get your money's worth. The graphics aren't cutting edge, but they aren't supposed to be. They look good, and the trade-off between having a stable game that purrs along on any of the compatible VR systems nicely is easily worth the sacrifice of a few extra pixels and textures, especially given that the multiplayer holds its own so well. Optionally, being aboard the original Starship Enterprise was a blast, in a retro lollipop theme kind of way. And as long as I kept up the tutorial windows so I could see what unlabeled button did what, it was a great laugh and sunk me deeper into the nostalgic feeling of being inside an OG Star Trek rerun that I'd watch on TV when I was a kid. Very cool. On the downside, I couldn't play the game at all without an internet connection, which was horseshit. And any game that does this instantly loses a point in my book and gets put on the do not buy list if there are enough complaints from other users that can't connect to the servers. And while I did only experience a couple of these messages over a few days of play, which was fine, that's definitely not grounds for getting that point back. I sorely needed the option to turn the volume of other players' voices down, as some of the louder crew members did get way too much at times, and the NPCs that filled in for missing crew were a bit daft a lot of the time, and generally an actual player had to take over an NPC spot in order to get a task done in a suitable time frame, particularly when we were in a pinch. Price-wise, for what is essentially an online co-op, my wallet did feel an initial sting, but because the game turned out to be so much fun, it was a genuinely worthwhile purchase. The whole cross-platform play aspect that allowed Rift, Vive, and PSVR users all to converse in one big online lobby was brilliant, and meant that I easily found games to join. And while I rate the actual story and single-player aspect itself at about a 5, the thing you have to understand about this game is it's not about the game. Kind of. It's the absolute blast you'll have laughing it up with some of Starfleet's least qualified and most qualified crew members from around the world as you haphazardly warp your way around the quadrant. Star Trek Bridge Crew is the party animal that everybody wants to get hammered with on the weekend because they know there won't be a moment of uninteresting silence, and the sheer volume of randomness will keep you kicking it until you
can't take anymore. Damn.
I loved Star Trek Bridge Crew, and I'll give this a very solid 7 out of 10. No need to try before you buy. It's a well thought out, functionally random laugh around the stars with enough serious references to the show to keep die-hard Trekkies and filthy Starfleet casuals like myself beaming back on board for more. So yeah, recommended. And that's it for this review. So if you liked what you saw, then crush that like button, click the links on screen now for more content, or click the EXO logo to subscribe if you wanna. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace!